Zimbabwe ichakushimbira izanutoi inokushimbira imukabira ichakushimbira izanutoi inokushimbira imukabira ichakushimbira izanutoi inokushimbira imukabira ichakushimbira izanutoi inokushimbira imukabira.
First of all, let me once again thank Zimbabweans. You are a wonderful lot. I mean, your support has been tremendous. You've supported your president, 2.6 million of you, against 2 million for ED. Everyone knows that. ZEC knows that. We issued a subpoena, we tried to issue a subpoena to establish that, and the whole system blocked it, just as they tried to block our saving of the process through the sheriff. But the truth is out there. So thank you so much, Zimbabweans. Thank you for the support that you have given us. Thank you for the words of comfort. Oh, the many prayers. You've just, been phenomenal. Now the judgment which has been rendered by the court is one that we are not free to criticize, because we now know the reasons for the judgment. We have so many problems with it, obviously. Our challenge was a numbers challenge, and the numbers that we put before the court were from ZEC on figures. So, Zimbabwe, here are the key issues. Number one, the fact that ZEC changed its results 3 times over has not been disputed. The fact that ZEC made a declaration on wrong figures is accepted. The change to the CD was shown by ZEC to have been false, because ZEC soon revised that change once an application was brought. Now here is the key question. Are we to stand by the first declaration which has been disowned as false? No, we can't. Are we to stand by the second declaration? We can't. Simply because it has been disowned by ZEC as false. Are we to stand by the third declaration? Once again, we can't. For 2 main reasons. Number one, that declaration or the latest figure is one that is not been verified by you. Number two, there is no data, primary source data from ZEC which supports the correctness of that figure, given that they've revised their figure 3 times over. So that's the first issue. So you now have a critical question, Zimbabwe, which must be answered and which cannot be answered. If the court declares, as it has done, that ED won this election, how many votes did he get? How many votes did he get? That question is unanswerable. Why is that question unanswerable? It is unanswerable because the election was stolen. The next issue, before the court, ZEC admitted to having inflated ED's tally. The cumulative number of votes takes 1 to plus 16,500. Now, once you have that admission, eating into the 31% by which ED is said to have crossed the threshold, how can you vouch for the integrity of the process and the result? So there is that portion. 16,000 votes unlawfully given to ED. Doesn't end there. The discrepancy between the presidential and the parliamentary time remains. It accounts for 40,000. On its own, it justifies the setting aside of the entire election. That critical issue is not even addressed in the judgment. So the theft is stuck. The theft is clear. The theft is palpable. But that is not the only issue. You have the ghost polling stations. ZEC did not say anything about those ghost polling stations. The fact that there were ghost polling stations didn't say anything about that. It accounts for tens of thousands of other votes. That does not require primary evidence. Neither does it require any evidence of any sort from us. Once we point to the irregularity, and ZEC admits the irregularity, how can we then prove the irregularity that has been admitted? If I say you are a girl and you accept that you are a girl, why do I need to place further evidence showing that you are a girl? There is a catch here, there's that thing that has been doing the rounds. Everyone sees that it's actually a goat. Everyone sees that it's a goat. It calls itself a goat. Everyone calls it a goat. What other evidence do you place to prove that it is a goat? That doesn't end there, Zimbabwe. Look at National and Central. ZEC, of its own volition, says at 5:30, 105,000 people had voted. A named official gives that figure to the public broadcast. That figure is recorded, it is cast in stone. But when the final tally comes, we are told that 444,000 people voted. Some 370,000 people voting in 1 hour, 30 minutes. Where does that come from? ZEC must establish that it has not done so. At 7, the chairperson went live on air, explains that there had been a 60% voter turnout in Masvingo by 6 p.m. When the results are announced, there is an 84.16% voter turnout. Where does it come from? 24, an upsurge, an increase of 24% in 1 hour. Where does that come from? You know, when that kind of issue is raised, it is incumbent upon ZEC to place before the court evidence, to take the court in its confidence and say, in this particular locality, there was an upsurge. It doesn't do so. But we've placed before the court affidavits by people who were roving in the area which shows that there was no such upsurge. So if you look at Masvingo and Mash Central, the figures that you get are in excess of 500,000 donated to Eden. That's how they tried to gobble the 2.6 million from Chinese. And the fact that it was 2.6 million is known. That's why they refused to issue a subpoena. Quite unlawfully, there are letters to that end which have been written. I could go on and on Zimbabwe and talk about the figures, but the ones that I've just related to are key. And now, because these figures derive from ZEC, there is no need for what is called primary evidence. It's nothing like that. If ZEC changes its figures 3 times over, what evidence do we place before the court to show that ZEC has changed its figures 3 times over? When that is admitted, when ZEC says it has done so. There is a discrepancy between parliamentary and presidential elections. And ZEC accepts that on the figures that it has announced, there is that discrepancy. And yet it cannot place before the court returns PE 2005/AA, showing that there were people who decided to only vote in the presidential and not the parliamentary election. What other evidence do you want us to place before the court? The good thing is that for the first time in the history of this country, legal proceedings were broadcast live. We managed to follow them. So there is this issue about V11 forms. There is a disk which contains all the V11 forms that we managed to harvest. And that disk is before the court. So that disk was produced. Look at the papers, look at the court record. That disk was produced.
It was part of the evidence.
It is part of the evidence. It is part of the evidence. If I just get an application and I'll show you, it is part of the evidence. In fact, let me do so right now because it is important. You go to Annexure F3 at page 151. It is it's the CD with the V11 forms. So this was part of the evidence. This is the court application. This was part of the evidence. This was before the court. Now what you do when you get into court, there is evidence which is already before the court. You analyze and synthesize that evidence. And so that is how a matter is argued. But for purposes of these V11s, there was no need to establish these particular V11s because ZEC had admitted to our figures. For instance, these V11s will show the discrepancy between parliamentary and the presidential. ZEC comes and says, yes, that is correct. The difference is 40,000. So I do not go back to the V11s. Remember, I had 20 minutes. I do not go back to the V11s and start dealing with them one by one. Because of that admission, you start from a certain premise. You see. Okay. So yes, we had this V11 data, but once they refused to issue our subpoena, which would have shown that Chamisa got more votes than ED, we then concentrated on showing that ED had failed to scale the statutory threshold. He didn't have the 31,000, which would have given him 50% plus 1 vote. And in doing that, we started using ZEC's own figures.
Why didn't you ask for the ballot boxes to be opened and actually do the physical counting and compare with the V11s that your own agents collected?
Okay.
Vis-a-vis that's
you do not need recounts. I'm going to deal with this from many angles. If you have a mathematical challenge which says ZEC has produced figures which do not add up, you do not go to the ballot box, to the ballot box for a recount. Number one. Number two, you say there are ghost polling stations whose existence was not known about, but which produced these big results from Nangabu. When you make that allegation, you do not go and open the ballot boxes from ghost polling stations, because those ghost polling stations are not there. They shouldn't be there.
But they are there. The figures are there.
No, but you do not open the ballot boxes for purposes of establishing the fact. Number three, the High Court, the Electoral Court, the Supreme Court have already said if you have harmonized elections, you cannot open the residue without citing everyone involved in the elections. So you'd need to cite all the councillors in Kolili Mamange, in Mutare, in whatever, to deal with that issue. You cannot finish that within the 2 days. So what we have is sufficient for our purposes.
All right. So the other issue that people are raising is that of the 16 constituencies that had similar, results for ED, for NC, and they are asking, why were you unable to cite and say polling station Bulilamango 1 had the similar results as?
Okay, yes, we did that. On the polling stations with identical results, go to pages 168 to 173. We showed the figures. to show the figures. But as I've indicated when you're in court, when you're arguing,
You can't go.
you can't go through each and everything. But here is the issue. Once we said there was that phenomenon and identified the 16 pairs,
ZEC was supposed to...
what we could only do at that stage was to argue on the legal implications of that. Now, what was ZEC supposed to do? ZEC was supposed to deny the existence of that phenomenon. It didn't. It admitted that that thing had happened.
And
it, however, said that was normal. Now, it was incumbent upon ZEC to then try and establish, using the V11 forms, that that thing actually happened as a matter of fact. It was no longer for us. When you raise something which is clearly inexplicable and which raises dust, you shift the burden to the other side to explain the inexplicable. And if ZEC just produces 2 returns, why not produce returns for the 16 if your position is correct?